10 reasons why Ukraine is...
I wanted to give a quick, maybe 30-second to a minute disclaimer before the video fully starts. I believe it's important to be transparent. I am working in Ukraine and I do things here. However, I do realize that it is currently at war, and actually this is not inherently a reason not to live here. And the reason why is that they do need economic output, they do need people in a way that many other countries don't. And so inherently, if you are looking to move to Ukraine, you will be accepted and you will be understood. So I wanted to get that quick disclaimer out there, and back to the video.
Is actually a good destination for business, and why you reading headlines is the wrong way to go about business. So, hello and welcome back to the Traveling Report. Today I wanted to go over exactly why Ukraine as a country is inherently very interesting, and why the interest from Ukraine actually can extend into having large amounts of inherently very loyal, very open employees. First thing, Ukraine is inherently a European country. Now, when I say this, you may be like, okay, what does that matter? However, it's with this that they understand European norms, and this is massively underrated in terms of hiring employees, because many Asians, many Latinas, Latinos, Africans will not understand the business culture of Europe. And so you have to spend extra time not only teaching them the fundamental job, but also teaching them how to turn over clients in Europe, how to culturally interact with Europeans. And so it's with this that there's a lower barrier to entry for Ukrainians in markets like a Poland, like a UK, even like an America, than someone from a culture that is significantly different to the general populace outside of Ukraine. The second thing is that people are willing to work. There's a strong culture of work ethic in Ukraine, and I don't know the average hours in Ukraine. I'll put that up here. But the hours that Ukrainians work is higher than Western Europe. It's higher than many places in Asia. And so this strong work ethic not only grows your business, but it helps with the inherent ability for Ukrainians to grow their skills. They will upskill even outside of your company, and this is something that not many cultures will do, and it's because of the concept of humility in their work and ability to adapt that isn't seen in many other cultures. And number 3 is that upskilling. Many Ukrainians believe in the concept of upskilling, even if they're planning on leaving, because they eventually would like to earn more money. Of course, who wouldn't? So it's with that Ukrainians are highly money motivated, but also they upskill even without the motivation directly. And this is something that is super underappreciated in terms of how the money motivation works. The average salary in Ukraine is right around $300 right now. I'll put the actual number in hryvnia here. And this amount of money is not enough to live in Ukraine. And so many, they want to work for foreign companies, they want to work with foreigners, and they'll do a lot to do so. I believe that upskilling is inherently a cultural thing as well for Slavs, as I have worked with many Poles and many Czechs that also believe that upskilling, even regardless of their work, is inherently important. And there is a sense that knowledge equals wealth, and wealth equals status. And so you can kind of play to their ideology of status equals wealth. Wealth is gotten from knowledge, and that inherently makes their value even stronger. The fourth thing is that Ukrainians inherently have very high social understanding and empathy. While many will not be very good at culturally adapting to certain other places, there is a sense that there's supposed to be empathy and there's supposed to be cultural acceptance, if not understanding. And that cultural acceptance and that empathy, cultural empathy, is something that is fairly unique to Eastern Europe, as there's a concept of what is essentially respect for other cultures, even if it does not inherently go along with the cultural norms of the country. Now, employers, I want to give you a forewarning. You will be expected to either hire HR in country or become culturally adapted to the country you are hiring in. Now, if you need help with that, there is a possibility to comment down below and I will give you a 15-minute consultation on global mobility and internationalization of your company. And for a limited time, that's 100% free. It will only last for people who are watching these first 10 videos. So if you're looking for a very high-level business-oriented internationalization plan, I highly recommend to comment Sovereign down below. The next thing I wanted to go over, the next point, is that Ukrainians inherently are living in societies that are very connected. The internet in Ukraine, which I will put a speed test up here, is very good. And also the SIM card speeds are very good. So if they're living in Western Ukraine, Kyiv, oftentimes these services do not go down. And you can inherently live in these places and still have high connectivity to other places around the world. And this is a unique selling point for Ukraine, as their internet is inherently very, very quick and cheap. So the cost of labor is cheap, which brings me on to the next point, salaries. So I hinted on it briefly before, but salaries in Ukraine are very low. They are not high, but if you are to pay as a foreign employer, first of all, just pay higher rates. You don't want the turnover hassle that Ukrainian companies have to deal with. So if you're a foreign employer, just pay 50% above market rate. And if you do that, you'll get people who are very motivated, very willing to work, and who will appreciate your inherently large amounts of integration into society, because paying high amounts, paying high level salaries for a starting position will get you lower turnover, and also people will start wanting to speak English for your company as opposed to feeling obligated to start speaking English. And as a local employer, actually Ukraine has a lot of good tax incentives and good integration into society and perks, I suppose. And so if you are an employer, you can use these perks to your benefit. And so you can inherently pay people high salaries and then work backwards, and your business will grow substantially as a result. Now, another thing that's nice about that is the sixth thing. High salaries will lead to them outperforming and them doing more than what is the job title entails. In the United States, for example, there's a large work culture shift away from doing more than your job description entails, which I, as a business owner, actually think is fine. If you're going to make a job description, make it so that they understand the full responsibilities and be transparent about the full responsibilities up front, and then pay according to those responsibilities. I'm a firm believer in that. However, if you are bootstrapping and you have clear guidelines for what is necessary for the amount of increase in responsibilities and inherently how they can step up, that is inherently a very high level, very underrated way of living life and of doing business. And so if you're looking to create a business that is integrated into bootstrapping, or you don't have the highest level of cash flow, then inherently Ukraine is an amazing option. Number 7 is that there are a lot of people in Ukraine who are highly technically skilled. The education emphasis in Ukraine is insane. And a lot of people will hold master's degrees in business, will hold master's degrees in finance, will hold master's degrees in IT, because there is a gap between the employment rates and the amount of education people have. So even if you are a founder who does not have a degree, which I'll put a video up here about why dropping out from Harvard was a good decision for me, then even though you don't have a degree, you are inherently providing someone with a degree with an opportunity. And on the back end, you're building yourself as a credible person who is knowledgeable, as even though people don't expect you to have a degree anymore, there is a sense that if you have a graduate degree, you are more stable, you are more knowledgeable, and if you're hiring someone with a graduate degree, that transfers over to you. Number 8 that I'd like to go over is that a lot of people in Ukraine are highly motivated to leave. And while that may seem counterintuitive at first, why would I want someone who, I'm hiring to then go leave? Well, that's a very simple response. You want someone who is willing to learn global systems. You want someone, especially if you're a firm in America, or you're a firm in Poland, or you're a firm in Slovakia, Slovenia, Czechia, Netherlands, that inherently makes the semblance of having large amounts of global mobility important, because if eventually you want to shift them to your company in Italy, then they're going to need to be able to have the willingness to shift to Italy. And you don't get that from Western Europeans. You don't see an Italian wanting to move to Germany very often. And so that combined with your business is very important. The next thing that is to be gone over, and is number 9 on the pecking order, is the fact that Ukraine is growing economically despite the war. Ukraine has become a very service-oriented country, and banking is improving, digital services for governments are improving, ease of doing business is improving, freedom of the press is improving. All of these things are improving across the board. And this is not something that the media will tell you, because they like to paint negative photos of countries, and especially those in war, it's always showing only about the war. But Ukraine is innovating, and they're innovating at a rate that is faster than in the United States, faster than in Great Britain, faster than in France. And so they are inherently becoming less bureaucratic, more open to foreigners, more open to foreign capital, more open to hiring. And so these things kind of create a perfect storm for employing people in Ukraine who are highly skilled, who are highly technical, who are highly educated. And this inherently creates a divide in in what is seen across the board and retaining people that are very highly skilled. Number 10, and the final thing, is that Ukraine is a very caring country in terms of hospitality, which that may not seem like something that is necessarily relevant to business, but hospitality is also how people do business. And so, inherently, if you want someone who is going to be your friend and who also will do work on a friendship basis, that this is one of those countries that you can hire someone and they will be your friend forever, even after they leave the company. And this is important because you have a long stretch where even if you have to let them go or whatever, they will still help you and they will still eventually give back for the opportunities you gave them. And this is something that is massively underrated by business owners, is the fact that not only do you have capital in terms of money, but then you have human capital. And so in basic economics, there are three things: land, labor, and capital. If you have Ukrainians, you have labor. If you have money, you have capital. And so essentially, with the new digital world, that land isn't necessary anymore. And so if you're looking for a sovereign lifestyle, like we preach here at the Travel Report, that inherently gives you a large ability to arbitrage low salary workers in high salary roles, which many people know how to do or think they know how to do, but then they get swamped with turnover and all this other stuff. And so I hope you learned from this video the top 10 things that people won't tell you about Ukraine and how to view Ukraine in a more positive light. While I think there are issues with Ukraine, and I will go over almost every country in the world eventually, I think that Ukraine is uniquely positioned in a way that allows for high-level European access without European-level salaries. So that's it. I hope you appreciated this insight. If you are looking for a one-on-one call, again, comment sovereign. And without further ado, I hope that you enjoyed this upload. I will see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, share, and this has been the Traveling Report, signing off.